If dementia runs in your family, does that mean you're destined to get it? I hear this question all the time, in my clinic, in the grocery store aisle, even at backyard barbecues. People lower their voices when they ask it, like it's a secret they're afraid to hear the answer to. And I get it. Watching a parent or sibling slowly lose their memory. It's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder if your own story will end the same way. But here's what I tell my patients, and it often changes the look on their face. Family history matters, yes. But it's not the whole story. Your brain has a remarkable ability to protect and repair itself, even if your genetics aren't perfect. And there are choices you can make, small, everyday choices, that tilt the odds in your favor. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how. Not in a lecture, not with scary medical jargon, but in a way that makes sense for your life. Because your future isn't just written in your DNA, it's written in what you do starting today. Have you ever walked into a room, and then just stood there, staring at the walls, wondering why you came in? Maybe you've blamed it on stress, a bad night's sleep, or just one of those senior moments. Most of the time, little slips like that are harmless. They happen to everyone, no matter their age. But sometimes, they can be your brain's quiet way of saying, hey, pay attention to me. The tricky part is, early dementia symptoms don't arrive with sirens blaring. They're subtle, a name that slips your mind more often, a bill you forgot to pay, or getting turned around on a route you've driven for years. And here's what I've noticed, most people shrug these moments off, thinking they're just a normal part of getting older. But those are the moments when paying attention can make all the difference in the years ahead. Which brings me to a way of looking at your brain that might just change how you think about your future. I like to think of your brain as a garden. Not a perfect, manicured one from a magazine, but the kind of garden you've been tending, or not tending, season after season, year after year. The soil you start with? That's your family history. Your genetics. Some people are born with rich, fertile ground. Others have rocky, dry soil that makes it harder for certain plants to grow. Now, you can't swap your soil out for someone else's. But here's the good news, soil is just the beginning. The real story is in how you care for it. I've had two patients with nearly identical genes, one kept their mind sharp into their late 80s, the other began showing signs of vascular dementia before 70. The difference wasn't luck. It was the choices they made day after day. Skipping walks, eating processed food, letting stress pile up. That's like letting weeds choke the life out of your plants. On the flip side, staying active, eating colorful foods, sleeping well, that's watering, feeding, and pruning your garden. Family history might set the stage. But you decide what grows there. And the way you treat your garden today will shape what it looks like 5, 10, even 20 years from now. Which brings me to a habit I see all the time in America, one that quietly chips away at brain health without most people even realizing it. In my years of practice, there's one habit I see over and over again that slowly eats away at brain health, sitting still for hours on end. Picture this, it's a Sunday afternoon, the game's on TV, you've got snacks within arm's reach. And before you know it, 3 hours have gone by without you moving more than a few steps. Now, I'm not here to take away your football Sundays or your favorite shows. But here's the thing, our brains aren't built for long stretches of stillness. When your body stays still, blood flow slows down, and your brain, which thrives on a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients, doesn't get what it needs. Over time, that sluggish circulation can quietly raise your risk of cognitive decline, vascular dementia, and even stroke. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow drift, the kind you don't notice until you're already far from shore. The fix isn't complicated. You don't need a gym membership or fancy equipment. Just stand up every 30 to 45 minutes, stretch, walk to the kitchen for water, or step outside for a few breaths of fresh air. Those small bursts of movement act like mini wake-up calls for your brain, keeping blood and oxygen moving. And if you're wondering whether such tiny changes can really make a difference, wait until you hear what the numbers say. Here's a number most people have never heard: losing just 1.5% of your body's water can drop your brain's performance by almost 20%. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about the kind of dehydration that can happen just from skipping a couple of glasses of water during the day. No marathon running. No blazing hot weather. Just forgetting to drink. And when your brain runs low on water, it's not just about feeling thirsty. You might find it harder to focus, you might feel more tired, and yes, your memory can take a hit. I once had a patient, Bob from Ohio, who thought he was developing early dementia. His main symptom? Constant brain fog and trouble recalling names. Turns out, he was drinking less than half the water his body needed. 2 weeks after he made a simple change, a glass of water every hour, he told me, "Doc, I feel like someone turned the lights back on in my head." Numbers like that tell me something important: small, consistent habits can have an outsized impact on brain health. Which is why the next thing I'm going to share is something you can start doing today, before this video even ends. If you do one thing for your brain today, make it this: drink a glass of water at the top of every hour you're awake. It sounds almost too simple, I know. But here's why it works: that steady rhythm keeps your brain cells bathed in the oxygen and nutrients they need to fire properly. It helps your blood flow, supports memory, and even improves mood. You don't need to overthink it. Keep a reusable bottle by your chair, set a reminder on your phone, or just link it to something you already do, like checking email, standing up from the couch, or turning on the news. And if plain water feels boring, add a squeeze of lemon, a slice of cucumber, or even a few berries. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. I've seen patients who struggled with brain fog suddenly feel more alert after a week of doing this. No supplements, no expensive programs. Just water, on time. But hydration is only one piece of the puzzle. The earlier you spot changes in your brain, the more power you have to protect it. Most people think dementia just shows up one day, that you either have it or you don't. But the truth is, your brain often whispers long before it starts shouting. Early signs can be so subtle you barely notice them. Maybe it's forgetting a word you use all the time, mixing up appointments, or feeling more overwhelmed by tasks you used to handle easily. The trick is to catch these whispers. And you don't need a fancy medical scan to start. You can test your brain at home with little things, like recalling a short list of items after a 10-minute break, or timing how quickly you can name animals starting with the letter B. These aren't just games, they're ways to check if your recall and processing speed are holding steady. I had a patient, Carol from Michigan, who started doing a simple recall test every Sunday morning. She noticed she was slipping sooner than she would have otherwise, and because she caught it early, we were able to make lifestyle changes that kept her symptoms mild for years. That's the power of early detection. It gives you more options, more time, and more control. And often, it's not just you who notices the change. It's the people closest to you. I once spoke with Mary, a caregiver from Ohio, who had been looking after her husband for almost 8 years. She told me, it's not just about remembering to take medication or keeping doctor's appointments. It's about holding on to the person you love, even as little pieces of them start to slip away. Mary noticed the earliest changes before anyone else did, the way her husband hesitated in conversations, or how he stopped telling the same old fishing stories he'd loved for decades. She was the one who nudged him to get checked, and because of that, they had more good years together than they might have. Caregivers are often the unsung heroes in dementia prevention and management. They catch what others miss. They create the routines that keep brains engaged. And they remind their loved ones that they're not alone in the fight. Hearing stories like Mary's is a powerful reminder that brain health isn't just about neurons and blood flow, it's about connection. And connection, as it turns out, is one of the most powerful tools we have to protect the mind. On Wednesday mornings in a small town in California, a group of retirees gathers at the local library for a book club. They drink coffee, argue about the plot, and sometimes wander off into stories from their own lives. It might not look like much, just a handful of people talking. But here's the thing, every laugh, every debate, every shared memory is a workout for the brain. Social connection keeps the mind engaged in ways that crossword puzzles can't match. It forces you to listen, respond, and adapt, skills that strengthen the very networks dementia tries to break down. And it's not just book clubs. I've seen the same magic in gardening groups, church choirs, and even a group of Vietnam veterans who meet every Friday for breakfast. The research backs this up. Seniors who stay socially active have a significantly lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia. Connection isn't a luxury. It's brain medicine, and it's free. And when you combine that connection with small daily habits, you get something truly powerful. A lot of people think they need to overhaul their entire life to protect their brain. That idea alone can feel so overwhelming, they don't even start. But here's the truth, you don't have to change everything at once. If you can get just 1% better every day, those tiny wins add up. Maybe today you add a 5-minute walk after lunch. Tomorrow, you swap one soda for a glass of water. Next week, you call an old friend instead of scrolling your phone. None of these feel huge in the moment, but over months and years, they reshape the way your brain ages. I had a patient named George, 72 years old, who decided to take the 1% idea seriously. Within 6 months, his blood pressure was down, his energy was up, and he swore his memory felt sharper than it had in years. Protecting your brain isn't about perfection, it's about direction. Keep moving forward, one small step at a time, and you'll be amazed at where you end up. And that brings me to something even bigger, how we think about aging itself. Somewhere along the way, we started treating aging like a countdown clock, as if every birthday meant another step toward decline. But I see it differently. Aging isn't just about losing, it's about choosing. I've met 80-year-olds who hike trails, learn new languages, and still laugh so hard they cry. And I've met people 20 years younger who've already stopped truly living. The difference isn't luck or even health history. It's how they show up for themselves every day. Your 60s, 70s, and beyond can be decades of incredible growth, not just in wisdom, but in joy, purpose, and yes, brain power. Protecting your mind isn't just about avoiding dementia, it's about building a life you're excited to wake up to. And that's why I want to leave you with one final thought, something from my heart to yours. If there's one message I hope stays with you after this, it's this: your brain is not a ticking time bomb just because dementia is in your family. You have more influence over your brain's future than you think. Every glass of water, every walk around the block, every conversation that makes you laugh, they all stack up to protect the memories and independence you value most. This isn't about chasing perfection or fearing the worst. It's about making small, deliberate choices that add up over time. Choices that let you keep recognizing the faces you love, telling the stories that make you smile, and waking up each morning with clarity and purpose. So start today, not with a grand plan, but with one small step you can take right now. And tomorrow, take another. Because brain health isn't a one-time decision. It's a way of living, one that says, my story isn't just about where I came from. It's about where I choose to go.